More to Marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, product, and everything business. I'm your host, Susan, and today we are learning lessons from world-class brands, in particular, how to build a legendary customer experience. Now, I am super thrilled to have my expert on today. It is Dr. Joseph Michelli to this show. Joseph is a world-renowned customer experience expert, organisational consultant, and the New York Times #1 bestseller author for 14 business books to count today. And there will be many, many more in the future, so that number will change very drastically, very quickly. His work has shaped the service standards of iconic brands that I'm sure you've heard of. Just some of the list includes Starbucks, Mercedes-Benz, the Ritz-Carlton, Zappos, and Airbnb. And I say just to name a few. As a sought-after speaker and professor of service excellence, Joseph is dedicated to helping services and deliver real results to teams to build that memorable experience, build loyalty, and also drive long-term business success. So really marrying the customer and the business together, which is so important and so missed so often, unfortunately. Whether you are a business owner, a leader, or just extremely passionate about customer service, Joseph's insights on leadership, human experience design, and also creating a joyful workplace are very much sought after and will help empower you and your team, no matter what level you're at, from starting to already through and maturing. Welcome, Joseph.
Well, after that introduction, I think I should leave because there's no way I could live up to what you just did. But thank you. Welcome. It's good to be here. I'm glad to be here, Susan.
No, I'm so excited. I've been following you forever. I've been trying to get you on forever as well, as we know. I'm just so excited to hear more about you, how you got to where you are now, and what were those pivotal moments that helped you decide to focus on this area of customer excellence?
I had a mom and dad who said, "You're not on this world to be served. You're on the world you're here to serve others. And if you figure that out and you do it well, you create value for other people, guess what? Things are going to work out for you. But if you start with the premise that everybody's supposed to take care of you, you probably are going to be on the short end of a stick." And so I think that message really was with me. I thought I was going to be a lawyer probably at one point in time, but in graduate school or as I was going through college, it seemed more obvious that I should be in the mental health field or psychological principles field, and got involved in getting a PhD in organizational development and system psychology. So that kind of set me up to be able to get some jobs in graduate school with a fish market in Seattle, Washington, where they throw fish, and our ability to kind of take what was, pardon this pun, a floundering fish market and turn it into a going concern. It really was what catapulted me into the opportunities to work with many great brands over time. And as you get one, you bootstrap to the next.
Mm. And what inspired you to go with big and small? Because I know some people might hone in on just working with the big names, but what's made you want to help everyone and anyone in this field?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a customer. So I want to be served well when I go to a mom and pop shop as much as I want to be served well with a multinational organization. I think we need to encourage people to learn how to develop service talent and then how to develop organizations that create craveable experiences that cause consumers like me to want to come back to you. So, at that fundamental level, I have an interest in both. I'll be quite honest, early on, I had no reputation, so I started working with small businesses, and one of them became highly visible, which allowed me to work with large businesses. From then on out, I realized that large organizations have some great advantages in terms of being able to pay consultants full fee, but they don't always have the structure to be able to be nimble and invoke some of those principles. So it was always important to me to work with smaller businesses so I could watch some of the things we were doing in corporate America in action and really blow it out of the park. Plus, when you write books, people read them across all different sizes of organizations, and you get lots of feedback on how people apply principles that you didn't even realize they could use the way they've done it.
I think that's a huge thing for everyone to understand is principles from either small businesses or from large businesses. There's going to be learnings on either side for everybody. And it's just how you apply it to what structure you have or what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I hope during the time that we have together, we'll give some principles that people can use, no matter what size of business. But I always think about a dry cleaner I always say in a town called Poughkeepsie because it just sounds like a cool name. And I think of a dry cleaner in Poughkeepsie who's reading a book or listening to a podcast, and how do we make it viable for them? If it works for them, corporate America will figure out a way to do it, or corporate Australia will figure out how to do it.
Mm. I love that. And I think that this drives us into some of our questions that we've got for today. So, what makes the customer experience strategy so important? And then, when you're thinking about that answer, why do you think it's ignored as well?
Well, first and foremost, it's just talking about on a marketing podcast. I really think that marketing is part of the experience. I think that once you've marketed well and you've identified the people for whom your product will be resonant, you've created value for somebody, you've attracted them into the consideration set with great marketing, then you've sold them through a sales experience where they don't feel like you're trying to make money at their expense, but that you really are offering them solutions that meet their need. And after that, then you often have to deliver the service or good to them in a way that actually lives up to the promise made during marketing. And that's really where I think the bulk of the customer experience lives, is in the paying off of the brand promise. So
Mm.
if you have a branded customer experience, you make a brand promise in your marketing, you execute that through the deliverables at all high value touch points thereafter. That really is critically important. It's not enough to get money and move on to the next customer. It's very important to be able to take that customer through their life cycle with your brand, have them really sticky, want to buy from you again, feel like you really understand them, and that you've created an experience that not just meets their functional needs, but fits who they identify themselves to be.
I think the key there is how it's part of the whole customer journey. So you start off, as you said, the marketing, which has that brand promise. So you might say it's hassle free. So then they talk to the sales team and they make it nice and simple as well, because that continues that brand promise. And then the last point is when they're actually in there getting, I don't know, an installation or getting it delivered or using it for the first time, that it still has that simplicity to it, the no hassle. And if anything's broken along the way, that can be to the detriment to all the processes and also to word of mouth, which is so powerful. How many times have we had a bad experience? And and the product might be amazing, the best product in the whole world. It fits every single use I ever need for this product. And it was great price, great everything else. But then the experience let it all down. So I don't tell anyone, or I tell people not to get it because of the experience.
Absolutely. And I think, when you're talking to people who spend a lot of time in marketing, they're working against headwinds if the experience does not live up to what the product delivers, if it lets the
Mm.
product down. And so then you're trying to spread seeds on infertile ground, right? Because that ground has already been poisoned by prior experiences. So it's very important that we think about, and I don't expect every product or service to be flawless. I don't think anyone has created that yet. But I think it is trying to figure out what are the most high value moments that are most memorable to customers and nailing those. We talk about them as moments of truth or defining moments. And so knowing what those defining moments are along the journey, executing them as flawlessly as possible, and enveloping them in an emotional context where people feel they have a personal emotional connection to the brand, not just a practical transactional connection to the brand.
I think so many brands, to me, as part of ignoring this, is ignoring that emotional connection, because they forget that for them, it's just a business transaction. But for that consumer, it's meeting a need that's probably got some emotional connection behind it.
Absolutely. And I think that, if you want to talk about one tip to take away as an entrepreneur, no matter what level of business you're in, it is to define what you want every single customer to feel every single time, no excuses. And I call it a way we serve statement. And by that, I mean, let's take our mission, let's take our vision, let's take our values, let's flip them around. A set of values are things like integrity, right? Well, if you lived integrity, then what would your customer feel? If you actually behaved in all those behaviors that it would require to really live into your values, what would you expect your customer to feel? And in that case, maybe it's safe, it's content, it's something like that, right? And so if we really define what we want every customer to feel every time, then we empower our employees to try to make that happen. It can't always happen, but you're trying to make it happen. So in the early days when I was working with Starbucks, we talked about this third place, this loving parents home. I'm sorry, the third place where you could come to get a cup of coffee, not work where it was too formal and not home where it was too informal, but this affordable luxury place.
Mm.
And so we taught our team members that our job was to welcome people into the living room of the community. And our job was to be a host to the living room of the community. And that's a very different job than handing people coffee. And if you create that enveloping, welcoming environment that this is your affordable luxury place, it creates a different sense of emotional connection to the brand.
Mm. And it also is a draw card for them to come back and be loyal. So it's not just that one time experience, it's trying to get them to come back as well because they've got that feeling to that location.
Yeah, and clearly we had an advantage with caffeine, which causes people to need to come back, right? But people literally would. There were Starbucks we put in Seattle right across from each other, and we'd close one down, and people would say, "Oh no, no, you're closing down my Starbucks." And you're thinking, well, you could just go across the street for goodness sakes. But they created such an emotional connection to that one location that they couldn't even imagine what the world would be like without them.
That is a caffeine addiction there, isn't it?
It is. It is. It is.
What are some of the common threads that you've come across and experienced when you're trying to unite the customer experience strategies? So I'm thinking like you've worked with all these amazing companies like the Starbucks, Mercedes-Benz, Airbnb, and everything, but I'm sure there's going to be some kind of common thread between them all that you've seen that's probably common for all. Could you talk us through some of those for customer experience?
Yeah, I think an appreciation for customer lifetime value. There are organizations that I've literally had to go in and try to argue for customer lifetime value. Normally, those organizations do not do transformationally great customer experience. I mean, if you don't intuitively understand that the way I treat a customer who's already said yes is really important because it's hard enough to get a customer to cross the line and buy something from you because there's so many choices. And once they have, I now have to understand what is the risk I have of losing that customer. What are they likely to purchase if I were to execute a great experience? So I think a full understanding of customer lifetime value and a desire to calculate it. I think a general desire to use metrics to understand how well we're doing with customers. There are a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, we have great relationships with customers." Well, if you ask the C-suite, normally there's about a 70% disconnect between how great they think it is and how great customers think it is. The other thing I'd say now, and this is more of a modern trend, but I think the leaders that I see successful today understand that technology is a tool. It's a very important tool to creating convenience and personalization for customers, but that you need human beings and you need to design for human beings as opposed to designing based on what technologies can avail you. So I think the big thing here is if you're a small business today, you don't need to put all of the technology in front of everybody. In fact, your advantage might be putting a few key AI tools in the hands of really super emotionally intelligent people, and you will create great human experiences with that are technology aided.
And it's one of the key things I see a lot is people are worried about will AI replace roles? Will AI replace this human? But AI is AI, it's not human. You're always going to need that human element to sense check it, to put the right emotion behind it, to make sure it actually makes sense as well, and not always trust it because it only knows as much as it's been given the data of. And
Yeah.
as we know, humans are so complex. It's so hard to get all of that data into one little AI.
Yeah, well, I do a daily 150 word summary of news in AI and customer experience for LinkedIn, so it's free. People can get it anytime. But what I've really noticed from curating all this content about AI and CX and AI and employee experience as well is that there are plenty of problems with AI that we have to be attentive to. Just today, Google acknowledged that it wiped out a hard drive for one of the customers using their Gemini product. The problem was nobody exercised any oversight. So at scale and at speed with these technologies, without humans creating clarity of purpose and ethics, we do have some challenges. And yes, there'll be a lot of people, I'm sure, displaced, but ultimately, I tend to believe the people who have strong intelligence for what you want, need, and desire, who can say thank you and you feel it instead of AI telling me thank you and me saying, well, that was a machine, wasn't it? There's something fundamentally different about being appreciated, being welcomed, being cared for and cared about by a human being. So I think we're going to be fine, those of us who lean heavily into our emotional intelligence. But I do see some real value in the use of these tools for expediting menial tasks for your team members and for allowing customers to get self-service when self-service is all they really need.
I think it's absolutely fabulous in the speed now we can put in questions and answers into just the Q&A bots
Yep,
because um, it just, again, as you just said, they can self-serve themselves. And by having a bot there that can understand and learn and put in more and more from the calls that come in, the emails that come in, and the questions that are asked, it is going to be a lot quicker than a human to be able to put them in there. Naturally,
absolutely.
human will Q&A it, hopefully, of course.
Yeah.
But that ability for those instant questions and the nuances, even for languages, will make it so much better for the experience.
Totally. And I still think we need to leave that opt human option available, right? Like, I want to be able to opt to a human. And you're seeing less and less phone numbers on websites and abilities to get a hold of a human in organizations nowadays. So I think, one of the advantages sometimes in a smaller business is the ability to have people available to do the things that I could not get a person to respond to. I literally, for a U.S. government agency the other day, I was on hold for 8 hours. And then when I got off of the phone with them, they had not been able to solve my need. Had there been a technology solution, that would have been far better, right?
Yeah,
And then
or even
if
a
we had a
callback
lot of people,
solution.
that would have been good too. And if had I needed to get a hold of somebody, if we had more technology solving a lot more of the problems front end, I think there might have been people I could have gotten a hold of in the human sense. So we just need to think about it in every decision. Is this a technology place? Is it a self-service place? Do we need to have a human somewhere lurking in the background?
Agree. I think that's a great point. I think this is one of the things that we need to really get businesses to understand, and particularly leadership. What's the most critical leadership traits for fostering a culture of service and engagement so it doesn't go down too hard one way or the other?
Yeah, I think, I've helped develop a master's degree program in customer experience here in the United States. And so we're kind of looking at what do we have to develop a next generation of customer experience leaders. And I think there is a real hard data approach to this. You need to show return on experience. What does my organization get if I create great experiences? And these are metrics like what percentage of new customers come from referrals. So setting goals around even asking, how did you come to us, right? Like, I think great business
Simple
leaders,
question.
yeah, I mean, but many people don't. And if you don't know if it came through advertising, marketing, word of mouth, it's really difficult to know where to spend your money. And then more importantly, if you're not getting a lot of people coming from referrals, you're having to spend quite a bit per click up front in the funnel. The more you can get people to send people your way, the better up it is. It also, plenty of data that supports this idea that if you come to me as a referred customer, as opposed to an advertised customer, you're willing to tolerate more negativity during our relationship than the person who came advertising. It's not to say that I'd want to make you go through more. It's just that you're predisposed to tolerate a little bit more of the glitches. So if I do have a little rough patch in my experience, I've got some insurance purchased in by the fact that you're a referral. My point is, I think leaders have to have the predisposition to understand how to use data to know what kind of experience that they have. I think that great leaders in the space, like any other great leader, needs to have vision for what does a wonderful customer experience look like? What is it that we want to deliver, optimized, and let's make sure that we invest our money and resources to make that happen. And the last thing I would just say is agile skill. I think the days of building a design for customer experience one time and spending lots of money to build it are gone. You need to live in the space of being an agile experience designer. You need to know, I'll give you a classic example. I worked with hand-to-wear jewelry for a long time, and we would do things like take a spinner, on the top of the jewelry rack, and we'd move it a couple of inches over, and we'd see if it was getting touched more at that location. And then if it didn't get touched, we'd move it a couple inches over the other way and see if it was getting touched that way. That's what agile design means. It's looking for ways to, in that case, allow people to have more of a tactile experience with the product, which then tends to create more willingness to buy, a more sense of pre-ownership, if you will. But it also causes them to feel like they've had more of an experience than if they couldn't touch anything.
Mm.
So those are all the zeitgeist of being an agile designer, to being a good data user, and having a real vision of what done looks like in the great experience.
Yeah, and I think too many senior leaders just look at whatever's given to them on the dashboards and don't actually go through mystery shopping or even double jacking or whatever it could be to
Hmm.
actually live and walk in the shoes if they don't do the experience themselves.
Yep.
And that's one of the most
Many have been the
frustrating
time
things.
that I've gone into a C-suite and I'd say, have you called your call center? Let's call the contact center right now. Let's ask them the question on how a customer gets this need met. And in the boardroom, it's horrifying.
Yeah, the cricket thing does worry me.
Mm.
It's one of the first things I always do is start asking questions about what are the customers saying, how are the customers wanting this to come through, what is the journey they're getting today, are they even looking at it?
Hmm.
Because that helps. That discovery piece then helps, and going
We had
through
an
it is the
experience
best
where
way.
we improved customer delivery in one particular part of a journey by 20%. We were so proud until we asked our customers and they didn't even notice. It didn't, the threshold by which they noticed when we got it improved by 40%, right? Like it wasn't even appreciable until then. We could have just had been giving high fives to each other around the boardroom with no appreciable impact on the perceived experience of the customer. And this is where it's really critical to be a student of your customer.
I think that's a great point as well. There's a difference between the metrics showing you there's the increase versus what the consumer actually experiences and
Mhm.
feels. Because a lot of them, if it's a one off purchase or there's such amount of time between purchases, they may not even notice it.
Yeah. We had plenty of qual and quant to be able to prove that even though the actual behavior was better, the perception of the customer did not follow.
Interesting, really interesting. Now, how can a small and medium sized business apply some of these big brand customer service principles on their much, much, much smaller budget?
Yeah, I think the first thing you need to do is go around and ask your people, what do we want every person to feel in this business? It might be one or two people in your office. You may end up with one or two different answers. There needs to be a singular answer. We want everybody to have this experience. So if you can't have unanimity among however small your team is, you need to define it, and then you need to help them look at what that looks like and how are they making that happen every day. So that's a fundamental starting point. I think beyond that, any small business can say, where do we think our pain points are for our customer journey? Where do we think our high value moments are? You can take just a few minutes of life and have this positive thing where you simply say, we are going to look at the arrivals, the transitions, and the departure experiences. Those are the three things we're going to focus on. We're going to see how well we own the arrivals, whether that's online, by phone, in store. We're going to look at what happens when we go from one state of being to the next, maybe where it's from the point where we've sold, now we're going into the service phase, or from the service phase into the renewal phase, whatever it might be. Let's look at those transition points and really focus on what our customers thinking, feeling, seeing, doing, hearing. We call that empathy mapping. And let's look at what do we need to remove from what they're seeing? What do we need to add to what they're smelling or hearing? What do we need to change? It's not always adding more. Sometimes it's what do we need to reduce the clutter of the experience to make it more streamlined for the customer. So I would say any business can do it. Do some empathy mapping, define
Mm.
your way we serve statement.
I think, again, a key point you've just said is it's not always about adding. It can be just a simple step of reducing, going
Yeah.
down that whole lean Six Sigma path of where is some areas that we can just reduce time, where we can reduce click throughs. Any of those kind of pieces to get rid of any wastage will make a huge difference and have major impacts for the customer experience.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And sometimes we'll get in leadership teams, we'll say, okay, if we're going to do all these extra things, what do we need to get rid of? Like, because you just can't keep adding on to people and expect they're going to execute at the same level.
Mm, exactly. Now, I would love to hear from you a story where you've made some kind of really simple type of change, but it's had such a dramatic improve. I'm going to use the word improvement, not because I'd love to hear of a story where something tiny has made such a big positive impact for a business.
Well, I was working with Starbucks and senior leadership at Starbucks a long time ago. We implemented something called the customer walk. And it was really simple. All we wanted to do was have one person per shift walk out to the parking lot as if they were a customer and stand in line with the customers, overhear what customers were seeing, over speaking of, watch for things in the cafe environment that they could fix. So if they in that process of doing the customer walk, the condiment area was in disarray, they needed to fix that. If, however, when they were out in the parking lot, somebody mowed down a sign last night, then they needed to escalate that up to senior leader, to their management in the cafe. It had profound impact. And first off, we did it across the organization, so everyone was obligated to be in the customer's shoes, if you will. It was assigned to different baristas on different shifts, so it wasn't relegated to one customer experience expert. Everyone became visualizers of the experience and through the customer side. So when they'd come up to the pastry case, they'd see smudges on the glass that you could not see when you're on the other side of the pastry case because the pastry's in the way and there's glass before the smudges. And it just shifted everything. It was really kind of the beginning of us saying, wow, when we stand in line, we really notice the biggest problem is making change. What if we could mobile pay? And here in the United States, we just went to our phones and put a 2D scanner on that thing, and we were kind of the first in at scale in the US to use mobile payment, just because somebody had done the customer walk and really said, we need to solve this pain point. So I think it's really exciting when you do something as simple as systematically indicating to your team members, today you're doing the customer walk. And we want you to be the eyes and ears of the customer, to literally put yourself where the customer is.
And from what you're also sharing is it's not just walking it, it's having a receptive head office to receive this feedback and take action. Because many times you'll have companies that will provide this feedback, or even they get the feedback from the customer and they do nothing. Where the actual culture here of Starbucks was let's make it better together, all departments.
Absolutely. And I think when you're putting your people out there and saying, we are assigning you to get us feedback, and you're not taking it, then that's really silly. It's bad enough that we send out questionnaires and we do nothing with it. But when you're literally giving your people time to walk around the cafe and make it better and give us the ideas, and you're not taking it, then you're just losing a rich resource.
Mm. I'm going to ask the opposite question now. Where have you seen a small change make a negative, dramatic experience that no one could perceive was going to happen?
Oh, well, I'll stay with Starbucks again because I'm just in that lane right now. I mean, I've worked with a lot of other companies, so please don't get me wrong, but this one was such a bad one. We had a complex drink that consumer data had shown that they really loved. Customers loved it. It was absolutely spectacular. And and we kind of warned that this is a very difficult drink to make, but we did have the data that showed it was going to sell like no tomorrow. And sure enough, it sold like no tomorrow. And against better judgment, we did not appreciate the ecosystem impact. And after a while, we just had baristas who just wouldn't make it. I mean, people would come up and roll their eyes when they got the order. And at some point, we finally just pulled the drink. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that's a lesson I've learned a lot of times. If you got to take into consideration not just what customers want, but how well you can execute it and how much stress and pain you put on the people to make it happen. Once in a while, you can get away with a little of that, but if you sustain that, there's no, if it doesn't live well inside the organization, it won't live well outside.
That could be a really great special birthday drink that they make only on that person's birthday when it comes through on the rewards card, but maybe
Yeah,
not for an
that'd be great if we
everyday.
could only limit to that. But anytime you make any drink, then there's this secret menu, and then people come in and go, "I want that special birthday drink." And trust me, I've made every mistake in this part that you can.
No, I think
Um,
I've absolutely been loving our conversation. One question that I do want to ask is when it comes to Say, for example, you've got so many inquiries, so many opportunities for sales, but you know you can't fulfill them within a promise period. How should this be approached by a business? Because I see it happen so often that they'll be inundated because all of a sudden they're hot, they're topical, they're trending. From 100 sales, they've now suddenly got 1,000, but they actually can't keep up with the order. What do you think is the best experience that should go for when that's happened, when they didn't expect it? How should they then treat these customers to ensure that at the end they do have that, I suppose, delight moment?
Well, I think anytime you make a promise to a customer you can't live up to, whether it's order fulfillment or whatever, you need to make it right with the customer in some kind of a reasonable time. If you can't, that means hiring, that means sending it off to some other third party to do it. It means whatever. And if sometimes when we do that, we compromise the quality of what we're doing because we're just racing. Then you got to make up for that. So I make it right. I get it right, if I will, ultimately, and to some degree. And then I got to make it right. I got to do the extra thing. I got to give you more than you bargained for on the backside. In general, we should always be striving to give people a little more than what they think they deserve. Not a lot more, because then they'll think you're stupid as a business owner and they'll say, boy, let's go take advantage of you. You just want to give them a little more than they think they deserve. This is called equity theory. And if you can execute that, that's great. If in this case, you are not giving them what they deserve, and you've got to find a way to bring them up to parity and wholeness, and then you got to bring them beyond that, particularly
Mm,
because you caused them some pain and duress. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a lesson for a lot of business as well when it comes to execution is ensuring that they have something up their kitty, whether it is, I don't know, GWPs or whatever it could be, or bonuses, whatever it is, for those moments, because they're great things for the customer care team to have just in case as well.
hmm Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, just some kind of service recovery kit. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I have a question I ask everybody. And my question is, what brand, any brand in the world, best represents you and why?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways I could go with this, but I'm going to disappoint you. I think it's just this tiny little a cafe in Italy, and it's just outside of Florence, and it's not a name you would know, so I don't really. I mean, but for me, that spot, that one solo tiny cafe, was a place that I would go when I spent a month in Florence, and within a couple of days, they were trying to learn about me as an American, and I can speak marginal Italian. And they would just welcome me every day and they would introduce me to other locals. And what it created for me, and it's in keeping with another brand that I have worked with, which is Airbnb. It's that idea that they created a place where I could feel welcome anywhere. I felt so welcome, so loved, so the old television series Cheers, where people knew your name. I felt like people knew my name. They cared that I was there. When I was leaving after a month, it was so disappointing. And I just chatted and talked with old men and had coffee in the morning at a stand-up coffee bar.
Mm.
There was nothing shiny about it. It just was where I belonged. And I long to go back. I can't wait. I'll be going back to Italy soon, but I just can't wait to go. Of all the things I could see in Italy, that little coffee shop's the thing I'm probably most endearing to me.
I love that. And that's just so personal and in keeping with what I do know of you as well. And I love that you're going back there too, and that it's a
Yeah, I'm going
real
to, and
experience.
Italy just happens to be there too. But the coffee shop is why.
Like, no, you're not even going for the coffee, you're going for the
That's right.
people. Because not
That's
once
right.
did you say the coffee was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, I'm just sure it's fine. I don't remember it as much as I remember the laughter. So,
No, I love that. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to do a quick wrap up and then you can tell me anything I may have missed. So, today we were talking to our very special guest, Joseph, all about customer experience and how we can actually bring it about in such a way that it becomes a true asset to the company to not just get sales, but to grow that relationship and then continue that relationship beyond. Now, one of the big things is for me, it's about making sure you as a business understand what you want your customer to experience every time and having that ingrained in everyone throughout the whole business. So that is how we think about every decision being made, whether it's behind the scenes or touching the customer as well. Because if we understand how we want everyone to feel, we should naturally then be serving them in that way as well. And it should become quite authentic and natural, which is how you want it to come across as well. Now, the thing I loved was talking about how brand promise is such a huge aspect of this, because you need to be able to create a brand promise, not just about taking money, but how you actually want them again to feel, to then crave to come back and want more, because you want people to be sticky. You want them to feel like they're cared, and you want to really make them feel like they've been understood with whatever they're purchasing, that you understand their needs as well, and that this will help them, and that you're there for that journey too, no matter if it is just a one-off. And this is where those high value moments, moments of truth, defining moments, really come in. Because if you can understand where they are in the customer journey mapping and empathy mapping stages, you can create those real emotional connections. And that is key. Again, going back to that, how do you want them to feel every time? Now, there are many ways that you can help your business to understand those. And one of them could just be simply stopping for a moment, getting the data out, which I love data, everyone knows that, and looking at the customer lifetime value and how that is truly being calculated. Because by understanding this, you understand where you can improve and where there might be some gaps as well. And some businesses might not have a customer lifetime value because it is a one-off purchase, but most businesses do, whether there's a repeat purchase every 5 years or a placement, wherever it is, or even referring. Referring is also a type of customer lifetime value because they're giving information out to other people and they're bringing people in for you. So you've got to think of it in all those different facets. But this is where technology can come in and help you. Now, we spoke about AI. AI is not a replacement for humans, it is a tool. And the great thing about this tool is you can teach it with your data. So make sure you do that in a safe place. We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but it's about making sure you're using it the right way and helping you make good decisions. Now, but you always need a human, because the human needs to understand and give information in to make sure the right information is coming out. And that's where you use your brains. Sense check it, people. Come on. So ensure that you use a blend of both humans and tech where you can, and that can help you scale and do things a little bit quicker. But also it might discover some areas that you may not have thought of that were gaps too. Now, a great thing to look about there in the data as well is what are you learning? What's the percentage of customers that are referring? What are they referring? And all these added pieces of data will help make more better informed decisions, particularly for the leaders or for you to present to leaders. Now, an interesting thing we learned today is that people that are referred are a little bit more tolerant than those that just come in as a cold lead. That I find interesting. I'm going to be testing that out myself. And I think that's a really good, unique way to look at things too. Now, vision is important. And that's when we come back to our vision for the business, to always go back to how we want the customer to feel. Because again, everything's coming back there, the perceived experience versus the real experience. Again, how are we wanting them to make them feel? So I think it's really important for everyone to take a step of, let's go back. Is our vision and mission aligned to how we want a customer to feel? And then that will align everything back in. I just really wanted to focus on that because everything keeps coming back to, how do you make them feel? How do you want them to walk away and remember you? Most of us do not want them to walk away in a bad way. Now, customer experiences, as we just mentioned, you've got empathy mapping and also customer journey mapping. It's important to look at those and have an agile mindset of, how can we do iterations? How can we do optimizations? How can we reduce waste or get rid of time and get rid of steps? Because sometimes it's not always about adding, it's about removing and getting rid of some of those blockers that can make a huge difference. Again, back to those pain points, back to the points of making people feel special. They will all help you on those journeys, and any business can do them, because there are lots of different templates online for empathy mapping and customer journey mapping. Everyone can do it. Literally, you just go out, as we heard, join the back of your queue. Walk the steps of the customer. Go online and buy it for the first time. Experience it, and don't let them know you're doing it either. Do it and make it like a mystery call, a mystery shop. And that will help you see some of those pain points too. And if you can regularly do that, it'll be amazing what you discover along the path. But it comes down to having a business that's wanting to be open to changes. No business should stay the same because everything's changing around them all the time. But the business has to make that informed decision that we're all on this journey together to improve. And that's where getting feedback helps improvements. Anything else to add there, Joseph?
Just that Susan should be, I mean, AI has nothing on Susan on summarizing, and goodness knows you created an incredible experience for me today. So, other than that, no, I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah.
Thank you again so much for your time today. I've appreciated it so much.
It's
Now,
been my pleasure.
Now, everybody, Joseph is all over LinkedIn. He's adding lots of content on there all the time. He also has all the links to his books as well that can help you along the journey with real insights, real actionable actions that you can go off and do. So I'll make sure all of that is added in the show notes. Again, thank you so much. I've loved talking.
It was my pleasure. Thank you. Best to you and to your audience.
Thank you. Everyone else, don't forget to add more to marketing to your playlist so you don't miss out on future fabulous guests. More to marketing.